My name's John Nicholson. I'm a director with Ringway, Highway Maintenance Specialists. I'm very pleased to be here this afternoon and present to you effectively what was the contents of an award-winning application that we put to the CIHT in relation to specialist driver training that we've been developing over the last few years. So over the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to present that to you. I've got a couple of films to show you along the way, and then I'll be more than happy to take questions at the end. So if you're happy, I'll get underway. Okay. So just by way of a bit of context, as a company we look after something in the order of 50,000 kilometres of carriageway across the UK, and that involves around 3,000 people, excluding our joint venture companies. We've got joint venture companies in Scotland trading under the name of Bear, and Ringway Jacobs that operate in a number of areas in England. We've got around 700 HGV drivers, so quite a large proportion of our employees are HGV drivers. Again, that number doesn't include our joint ventures, and it doesn't include a lot of casual labour that we sometimes need to bring in to supplement the winter service. Within Ringway alone, we have 1,414 vehicles on the road most days, and within that, around 191 winter gritters. So again, a large proportion of that fleet is involved in that difficult operation of winter services. And again, that number doesn't include our joint ventures and quite a number of vehicles that our clients own, but we operate on their behalf. So quite a large number of drivers, quite a large fleet out there on the roads of the UK every day. So I suppose almost inevitably, we do have a lot of driving-related incidents. It would be nice to think that that wasn't the case, but the reality is otherwise. What we do know from the analysis of those incidents is that a very high proportion of them are avoidable. We analyse every single incident, and we look at the root cause analysis of the incident, and with different behaviours, different competencies, most of those incidents could be avoided. Interestingly, slow manoeuvres, not snow manoeuvres, we've got those as well, slow manoeuvres in our depots and in and around sites are actually one of the main causes of the incidents that we have. So, believe it or not, people hitting immovable objects, hitting bollards, signposts, walls, those types of things make up quite a large proportion of the incidents that we have. And then, as I've already made reference to, we do a lot of winter services delivery. By nature of the service, we are often the very first people on the road network. Our clients, in most cases, like to treat the network in advance of ice and snow, but the reality is quite often our guys are out there, the first people on that road network, and the reality is they are on ice and snow, very difficult driving conditions. And of course, they've got to get themselves to work in the first place before they actually get into the winter gritter. And we do also have a very small number, I'm pleased to say, of what we class as high potential incidents. So we've had a number of vehicle overturning incidents, really rather nasty incidents. We've had incidents of vehicles running into houses and doing quite severe damage in some cases. And it really is quite fortunate that we haven't had any serious injuries along the way. But we really do have to focus in quite hard on those high potential incidents. So what are we doing to try and address those issues that we face? We've developed a 4-phase approach to improving the competency and the behaviour of our drivers. And over the next few slides, I'm going to take you through each of those 4 phases, which really are at the heart of the programme that we've developed. The first phase, which is aimed at what we class as high-risk drivers, people who are driving over 20,000 miles a year, young drivers, people around about 70 to 25, novice drivers, not necessarily young drivers, people who might have got their driving licence a little bit later in life, got less than 3 years driving experience. And we also allow discretion to our divisional managers and directors to nominate drivers who they believe would benefit from actually attending this course. And so far we've had around about 300 people attend that to date. The course itself is broken down into a number of modules. We start the day with a classroom session, which is very much aimed at testing people's starting competence, and then we retest at the end of the session in the classroom, and we measure the difference in learning during the course of the day. You may be surprised how startling that difference can be during the course of the day. The second session gets people out into the vehicles. Most of the day is quite a dynamic day, out driving around in different sets of circumstances. The photograph you can see there allows me to give credit to our service delivery partner, which is a company called R3. And the photograph you can see is when we were doing this training at a race circuit called Rockingham. And that's one of their vehicles, which is specially adapted. You can see the ball on the bonnet of the car, and the idea behind the spatial awareness course is that you drive around a pre-prepared course in such a way that the ball doesn't actually come out of the unit on the bonnet. So it's all about driving smoothly as well as not hitting any obstacles along the way. We do forward movements and we do reversing movements, and if you look very closely, you can see how tight that mock garage is that we're asking people to reverse into. Really quite a challenging slow manoeuvre course. The third session is then a speed awareness course. We're all quite used to driving along and having the benefit of the speedometer and the rev counter to judge the speed that we're driving at. If you take those tools away from drivers and you ask drivers to simply drive on their senses, it's actually very difficult to do. So that's the circumstances that we put people into. We ask people to drive towards a speed gun, and then we ask them what speed they were driving at. And most of the time they get it wrong, but thankfully most people tend to drive slower rather than faster than their senses tell them they are. Not always, but most of the time. So again, a very useful tool in terms of helping to have people have more empathy with the vehicle that they're in. And then the fourth session is in some ways the most sort of exciting session of the day. On a low friction surface, what some people would call a skid pan, we ask people to bring their own vehicle, the vehicle that they normally drive during the course of their work, and then we ask them to drive at various speeds or to make various manoeuvres on the low friction surface, and they get the opportunity to experience losing control of the vehicle in a safe environment, and with the help of specialist driving instructors, they're given techniques and tools which help them to not necessarily do anything dramatic when the vehicle does start to slide. What we want to try and do is prevent them getting into those circumstances in the first place. From my point of view, I've been on that course myself, and I have to say I found it hugely beneficial, not just in terms of helping iron out some of my own bad habits that I've developed along the way, but also it gave me a real insight. Some of the other people who were on the course with me gave me a real insight into their competency. That was quite startling for some people that I observed. And also the physical driving standards of some of the people who were on the course was really quite shocking. And it really did reinforce why we've got this training program. So I'm now going to show you the first of two short films which allow you to look at some images of that course and also get some feedback from people who've taken part.
It's going to make me think twice about some of the things I do and how to react in certain weather conditions or road conditions. Simple things like aquaplaning as we went through. The skid pan test is absolutely brilliant. The driving with the ball on the bonnet makes it a big difference in how difficult it is to be smooth. You think you're smooth and you're not.
great opportunity to get out there and actually find out what your car does, or van does. The skid pan test is really good.
It will surprise you. I've never sort of spun out or anything in the car before, and I have now, and it shocks you when it happens, and you won't expect it.
Improve their skills, learn what to avoid and how to avoid, and recognise the input to the vehicle that's going to create the differences to what they do. And being out on the road so long, that's going to save them a lot of trouble and hassle, and me a lot of paperwork.
So hopefully that short film brings to life what it's all about. The second phase of the programme that we put together is really a critical phase for us, and it's all focusing upon gritter drivers. I said previously that winter operations are a very significant part of our business, and you'll see there on the slide that we've already trained something in the order of 750 drivers, put them through this programme. That's the vast majority of Ringway's own drivers, and also a lot of drivers from our joint venture companies. As a practical issue, we had to move the training from the site that we were using at Rockingham down to another circuit down at Thruxton. That was simply due to weight restrictions at Rockingham, and a very similar course structure to what you've just seen on the high-risk driver training. One key difference, though, and one supplementary thing that we do with our winter drivers is, because of the in-cab technology and the complexity of the vehicles that we're now using, we also now do chassis-specific training with the help of the chassis manufacturers. We bring them in and we ask them to talk to our drivers and demonstrate how different transmission settings, different anti-skid devices, anti-braking devices, etc. Can actually help them deliver the service in a safer way. And I will show you later on in the presentation, just before we finish, another film which focuses in on the winter training. But again, a very similar course content. The classroom session, which covers the pre and the post assessment. Spatial awareness, obviously slow manoeuvres of a tight course, a very different thing in an 18-ton vehicle or a 26-ton vehicle fitted with a snow plough. But it's exactly the same concept that we use. Very challenging for the drivers, but very much mirrors what they do on a day-to-day basis, avoiding parked cars, dealing with narrow roads, those kind of things. And then we put these large vehicles on a low-friction surface, and our drivers get the chance to experience safely what it is like when these big vehicles start to move around underneath you, and they actually learn how to be able to react accordingly. We also cover the safe removal and fitting of ploughs, and cover how to prevent incidents with hydraulic fluids and those kind of things, which can be quite nasty when they do happen. So I've said I'll come back to that at the end, and I'll show you a similar film which highlights what we do with the winter driver training. The third course reflects the fact that we have quite a number of other HGV drivers, not necessarily in our Ringway business, but in some of our other Eurovia group companies, who drive large vehicles such as low loaders that you can see on the slide there, or large specialist highway maintenance vehicles. And those people are probably more dedicated drivers than a lot of our other drivers who do other multifunctional things for us. So we very much tailor the training for them on a more personal basis. It's more in-cab assessment, it's more one-to-one training, looking at their driving behaviours, looking at their performance on the road, and we found that is much more successful for those types of people. Again, we try to do it wherever possible in the vehicle that they use every day, so they can very much relate it to their day-to-day work. And then the fourth phase, probably one of the more recent courses or elements of the programme that we've developed, focuses in particularly on graduates, apprentices, and again an element of young drivers. And what we've found recently is we have had experience of perhaps giving keys to a relatively new vehicle, a new graduate, perhaps who's joined our business. They've got a driving license, you know, they're entitled to drive on UK roads, but actually we've had a few gone out and had nasty accidents, or when we've actually started to do assessments with those people, we've discovered actually that their competency behind the wheel is nowhere near where we would expect it to be. So we've developed a similar course content, but really focusing in on that target group to try and upskill those people in a better way, in a more practical way than perhaps we've done previously. And you would think, wouldn't you, that someone who's quite recently passed the driving test would be quite good at a competency test, particularly those elements based around the highway code. Well, again, the test results can be quite startling. And when you start and then move into areas around the dynamics of the vehicle, what is oversteer, what is understeer, and trying to explain to young drivers what those things are and how they need to react, that really is quite alien to many of those young drivers. So this course, both in terms of the classroom session and the low friction surface session in particular, really gives people the opportunity to experience those things again in a safe environment. So how do we bring all of that together? Within our business, we have a process called VigiRoute. Effectively, that is a system by which we record and categorise vehicle incidents. And we've used the data from VigiRoute to actually develop the 4-phase programme that I've just taken you through. And it's through the data that we've seen coming from VigiRoute that we've done that further work around assessments and training for young drivers. The statistics were showing a real problem area for us there that we needed to do more work upon. And what we're now starting to do, the latest sort of discussions that we're having, since we've got this programme quite well embedded within the business, is we're really starting to look more radically at the need to drive. Do we need to work in the way in which we are? Can we reduce road risk by simply reducing exposure hours? Can we take people off the road, put them into alternative modes of public transport? Can we actually redesign the way in which we work, or get materials and people to and from sites to actually reduce the amount of driving time that people have? And that really is an area that we're now starting to unpack and do some creative thinking around. I'm also very pleased to say, as well as the CIHT award, you'll see on the slide here the slogan "Driving for Better Business." That's an initiative by Highways England that we are very proud to have reached the highest level of accreditation for. There's 7 steps within that programme. We've reached that 7th level, which acknowledges, if you like, the fact that we've got a comprehensive set of policies, practices, training, and a range of case studies that we've been able to demonstrate to Highways England that we warrant that level 7 Driving for Better Business standard. Again, something we are very proud of. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the winter video, and then I'm more than happy to take any questions that people might have about the programme or any other aspect of what we've been doing. Today is all about giving our winter maintenance drivers the opportunity to experience driving in some very difficult conditions, but also to give them some good training in terms of the conditions they might face when on the network.
The point of today is to try and give some guys conditions of what it would be like to drive in snow and ice, also spatial awareness to assist with vehicle manoeuvres, slow vehicles in our depots and out on the network.
A number of the incidents that we have can be avoided. Certainly the incidents that we have in our own depots, by more care and attention, by more spatial awareness, I'm convinced that they can be reduced.
It's not a usual training course, it's far more practical. Actually get the opportunity to create a skid in a live environment which you wouldn't have that to do on the network.
As a company, we really value our safety record, but we have had a number of incidents when carrying out winter maintenance, and we want to reduce those, and we see a training programme such as this as a key means of helping us do that.
Accidents and incidents, they're always avoidable. It's about putting the effort in and training to guys to ensure that we help them to avoid those and give them the skills to do so.
We're getting really positive feedback from the guys. It's a real eye-opener for them. They've enjoyed the course, they take it on board, put it into practice, and it makes a real difference to our organisation.
I think through this type of training we will see a reduction in incidents. Our aim is to complete the winter driver training for the whole of our driving fleet. This summer we've been very successful with around 200 drivers involved, but we've got round about 600 drivers on winter alone. So we've got many more drivers that we can focus upon to improve their driving technique and reduce accidents. One thing I should say just before I go to any questions there might be, if you're sitting in there in any doubt as to the benefit that we've got from this type of programme, in 2017 we saw 36% reduction in vehicle damage costs by comparison with 2016, and we've seen ongoing benefits in terms of damage costs, insurance benefits through a better relationship with our brokers and reduced premiums, and also we are seeing less numbers of incidents coming through. So we're convinced that this programme is giving us the benefits that we were looking for.